welcome back to my channel. I am Hawkinsimmer, and today we are doing something super exciting because I recreated my wedding venue in The Sims. Woo! How fun. It took a lot of time. I edited out quite a bit, not really, but a decent amount of stuff. I kept all the really important things. But just to start off here, we are doing the main building on this property. We got married at a botanical garden that is completely run on donations. So there's a building on the property that they use for meetings and, small gatherings. It has a garage with like tools and lawnmowers and things in it. And it actually is where all of the ladies of my family got ready. So yeah, I'm just kind of setting that up because it sits right at the front of the property. So I do the exterior here just to put it in place. But this is actually the only structure really, I guess, that I build on camera. Everything else I built off camera. They're kind of boring, simple little houses. So I decided to build those all off camera just because I felt like, I don't know, doing this one on camera was enough. And there's a ton of landscaping. I got married in the fall of 2019 on my most favorite day of the year, September 21st. Yes, it is because of the Earth, Wind, and Fire song. I've convinced myself that will always be a good day, so it is always a good day. And it just so happened that it worked out that day was going to fall on a Saturday soon after I got engaged, a couple years, I guess, after I got engaged. So it worked out for us. So we've been married for about a year and a half. Before that, we dated for, math is hard, 7 years. And I was in my last year of college while I was planning this wedding. So there was a lot of moving parts, but honestly, it was nice to not think about school. I really didn't like school, so it was cool to be thinking about this a lot in my free time, I guess. But I went to see a lot of different places. My husband at the time was working full time, so it was hard to coordinate when we could go together. But I had a good friend who went with me to a few good places, and then we narrowed it down. And actually, when I went and saw this place, it was in February. And as I've said before, I live in the Midwest, so in February, everything is dead. And the girl who showed it to us was like, oh my gosh, I know, I promise it doesn't look like this in September. It's so pretty and everything is so green. It's just dead because it's February. And I was like, no, that's fine. I totally get it. But it's a very whimsical little place. It's a sculpture garden as well. So there's tons of weird sculptures, including a very large basket, very large, I don't know, 20 feet tall maybe. That's what it feels like. Maybe it's not that tall, but it seems like it to me. But like I said, this first structure is right at the beginning of the property, and then as you go around there is a rose garden, and I honestly feel like that's super accurate to what it looked like. I am going to include a few pictures from my actual wedding in the screenshots just for comparison, but I did have to leave out some of the structures. So there's also a pavilion area that I didn't get put in, and a playhouse for children that I didn't get put in. There just isn't really a lot quite big enough to house all of those things, but I tried my best. But here I am kind of mapping out where we held the ceremony. It's kind of right in the dead center of the facility, and I was a little frustrated because the tree that was actually behind our wedding arch was a weeping willow tree, but there wasn't really a good option for that. The willows that we have kind of only go down half of the tree, all of the hanging parts, and this tree was a very mature tree, so all of the growths were clear to the ground and super beautiful. So I just went with something that kind of had the same shape, I guess, instead of going for the actual species of trees. Basically, it's the wrong type of tree, but the right kind of vibe. You know what I mean? But I'm just kind of going around doing the back side of this front building. This is where my husband and I did our first look. It's actually a really funny story. So like I said, all of the women were getting ready in this building, and the men were getting ready in another building that I'll show later. And I sent my girlfriend Gina to go tell my husband that we were ready for our first look, and he was like, all right, I'm going. Well, what Gina didn't know is that leading up to this, we had actually taken our engagement pictures here as well, and we had kind of talked about where we thought we might do the first look, and ultimately I thought we had agreed that we would leave it up to our photographer. Nick had thought that we had agreed that we would do it at the little pond on the backside of this property. So Gina comes back, we're hanging out, we're vibing, and he is nowhere to be found. Everyone gets a little concerned. We call some of the guys. The guys are like, yeah, he left. I called him. His phone apparently was not on him. So there was a good 15-minute gap where some people were definitely under the impression that he had fled for his life. I was absolutely 1000% confident of what had happened and was like, okay, listen, someone just needs to go out there and get him and redirect him, because I guarantee you he is standing out by that pond. I knew he was. So I don't remember how it all worked out, but someone did go get him, and he was standing out by that pond in the blistering sun by himself and redirected him. Got the shot set up. It was great. It all worked out in the end, but I knew he was standing out there. I knew that he had just assumed that that's where we were going to do things. I guess Gina was like, all right, they're ready to do the first look. And she just assumed that he knew where the spot was, and he just assumed that we knew where the spot was. It was a wild miscommunication on our very first day of marriage. It was pretty funny. So it all worked out in the end, and that's kind of the funniest part of our wedding day, honestly. But there I was, just kind of doing the reception site. Like I said, this lot isn't quite big enough to actually house what our wedding was and this entire property, but there was a tent kind of to the side that we had our reception under. It was beautiful. A proper garden wedding is what I like to call it. It was really, really beautiful. And the night before, when we were setting up, I definitely thought it was going to be a train wreck, and it was. Like, the night before was a train wreck. The day of was amazing, and I didn't think it would be. Honestly, I wanted to elope for a long time and thought for sure that I would regret having a big wedding, and there are things I would do differently, but all in all, like, we ended up having a really, really fun night. I danced all night with all of my friends. We had amazing food, and the cake was to die for, and it was great. It was honestly a really, really beautiful day and evening. So yeah, but I'm just kind of adding little touches here and there. I kind of go back and forth between doing the landscaping and doing, like, you know, actual items placing. But here I am doing that pond that my husband stood at for 15-20 minutes without me. Honestly, it was a murky little pond. It probably wouldn't have been cute for photos, which is why our photographer probably didn't want to do our first look there. Honestly, our photographer was amazing. Our photos are beautiful. If I have one piece of advice, if you are wondering where you should spend the most money or how you should divvy it up and what's most important, obviously the most important part of getting married is getting married and, like, showing and expressing your love to another person. That's obviously the most important part. The most important materialistic part, at least to me, were photos and rings, just because those are the only material items that you keep. Like, you usually don't get to keep any flowers. You don't get to keep your meal or your cake or decorations, really. Like, the things that you will have forever and other people will see most often are your wedding bands and your photos. So we made sure to kind of reserve a lot of our budget for those things, just because they're the things that you get to hold on to and pass down. So here you can kind of see some of the structures I've already built. This building in the back is where all of the guys got ready. It also has a really, really cool greenhouse attached to it. And then there's a very large gazebo over here. And it was really simple. Just had a few benches on the inside. I ended up swapping one out for a chess table, because you have to have a chess table in a park. And then there was a tiny little chapel, but I think the inside is just storage. It's like literally you can't walk inside of it. So I think it's just storage inside. It's just a cute little thing to have. But I landscaped a ton because it is a garden. There were other garden features that weren't going to fit in this, so they just aren't included, unfortunately. Some flower beds. They have one section that is for, like, community gardening. Like, people can buy the plots and plant there, so that's cool. I'm super into that. But I had to cut a lot of those little things out to make room for, obviously, the wedding venue itself. So yeah, but I'm just kind of making this corner a little interesting. I don't actually remember what it looked like between the gazebo and the back of the house, but whatever. And now I'm just kind of doing the entrance. We had a little sign at the front to point to the reception and the ceremony and the bathrooms. They all ended up were the same direction, unfortunately. It would have been a lot cooler if the arrows were going in separate directions, but they weren't, so whatever. But I just wanted to make a cute little entrance, mostly because I worked hard for the little signs that we had, because the morning of, I realized we didn't have any signs, and my friend Gwen drove me over to a craft store and we bought a couple of chalkboards and made a cute little, my other friend Elizabeth, the words on it because she has pretty nice handwriting, so it was all kind of last minute. Actually, my friend Gwen is a huge craft person. I mentioned that in the video where I built her childhood home, and she has a Cricut, and she Cricuted us a nice little sign that was like, you know, don't whip out your giant iPad and take a photo here. That was my like huge bridezilla type thing, I guess, if I had to say that about myself. I don't think that I was, but I was pretty adamant that if I see one phone in the audience, I will rage. Not really. I would have just been upset and cried later, but that didn't happen. But we're doing the reception area. Obviously, your Sims don't invite 200 people to their weddings, so I felt like it was okay to really not have very many seats, mostly because it'd be hard to fit. And we had a dance floor kind of right in the middle. I really wanted to have like a tent wedding, and it was really beautiful in the end. And it was nice because by the time it got dark outside, it was time to dance and party, and we did. It was so fun. And we did have alcohol at our wedding, but honestly, I think I was like dancing it off so quickly that I absolutely didn't get drunk at my own wedding, which was funny. And I don't know, I was so nervous the whole night. I think that I really just kind of sweated it all out dancing, I think. But we had a really good time, so it was really fun. I know I've said that like 30 times, but it was. And it's funny, my mom put together these like little goodie bags. All of our nieces and our nephew were in our wedding. They were flower girls and a ring bearer, and my oldest niece was like a junior bridesmaid. So my mom had put together all these little goodie bags for all of them with like little toys and things that they could play with, and it had glow sticks in them. And all of the adults my age, not like my mom's age or, you know, my grandparents' age, all of the adults like my age were like, where can I get those? So that's my second tip, is have glow sticks at your wedding, because if you have, you know, friends and family that are between like 18 and like 30, they're gonna want to play with glow sticks. Who knew? I didn't. I wish we had had more. Glow things. It seems tacky, but when you're in the moment and you're dancing to all of your favorite songs, it's not tacky at all. It's just super fun. Anyway, here I am kind of doing the building that was in the back. So this is the building, like I said, where all the guys got ready. It also had the bathrooms and a cute greenhouse. Such a cool greenhouse. I wish we had had time before the wedding to take more photos in here. There are lots of photos of my husband and my mother-in-law in the greenhouse, but I didn't get to. There were some time constraints in the morning that just didn't work out for us, but it's a really cool building. They have a lot of really neat stuff in there. So yeah, I took a lot of time to do lots of different, you know, terrain path stuff and the paths with the little stone. I took a lot of time to do that stuff. Also, this garden back here is an herb garden. So they have these like planters like that, but I didn't plant anything in them. So I don't know, you can just kind of use your imagination and pretend there's a bunch of stuff in those boxes, because in real life there was. But yeah, I'm just kind of setting up this little entryway. My, mom and my mother-in-law had kind of decorated this with pictures of my husband and I, like different pictures from engagement stuff and just like over the course of our lives, dating and while we weren't dating. We knew each other in high school and we were in drumline together. So we had lots of photos of being in drumline together before we were ever dating. So they kind of decorated that area. And actually, this room is funny. I had to put this huge mirror in here because all of the guys wore bow ties. Didn't know it was going to be hilarious, but it was, because no one knew how to tie a bow tie and no one had practiced before the wedding. So the day of, there are photos of all of the guys watching YouTube tutorials on how to tie their ties, and they're all freaking out. There's a so funny video, it's like 3 minutes long, of, I don't know who took it. It was probably my mother-in-law, I guess. And she was like going around, and all of the guys are like cursing because they can't get their ties tied. It's hilarious. I didn't know it was going to be such an issue. I've myself never had to tie a bow tie, so I just didn't know. But apparently it was an issue. Make sure if you have bow ties in your wedding that everyone knows how to tie one before the day of. But here I am just kind of setting up this greenhouse. I love the way this turned out. I wish there were more things, like I wish I could describe what this greenhouse is like. There's growth all over the walls, across the ceilings. I'm pretty sure there were like beams across, maybe, because there was a lot of overhead growth inside, honestly. But it was really beautiful and super fun. I think I might be able to include a couple of photos that were taken inside the greenhouse. So yeah, also I have full rights to the photos that were taken. That's part of the package that we have. So just so, you know, no one thinks that I'm posting artwork that I'm not allowed to post, I guess. But over here, there is a huge grape arbor. So I used walls to make the shape of it, I guess, and then columns to build the columns. And then I took away the floor, took away the ceiling, and then in a couple spots I added fences, and it's actually a really cool little thing. It's kind of like a hidden little pathway to a little sitting area, aka a smoking area, kind of behind the grape arbor. So yeah, I really like the way this turned out. Honestly, in real life, there's a lot more space between the arbor and the reception area, but it's just kind of how it worked out. I thought it was really important to get in there. We had lots of photos kind of around the arbor, so I like the way it turned out. I thought that it really kind of looked like how it looks in real life. Obviously, these aren't grapes, but they could be if you pretend hard enough. It depends how good your imagination is, I guess. But yeah, so I noticed right there that, oh gosh, I still have like the ceiling on, so I had to go in and take that out. But yeah, I used a lot of these debug plants to create what looks like, I think, a pretty convincing grape arbor. But I like the way that the fences kind of make cool partitions, so you can't really see that there's a smoking area back there, because honestly, like, that's how it is in real life, I guess. So yeah, again, just doing lots of little pathways. There were lots of different pathways, so I used a lot of different pathways, and here I am just putting in that little sitting area. Honestly, there were so many cool things at this place that it was just impossible to fit into one little location. There were lots of really cool elements. I had plans to make the playhouse that was really cute. It had like a fake little kitchen in it that would have been perfect for the little oven for kids that we used to have in like The Sims 3 and The Sims 2. I don't think we have anything like that in The Sims 4, unfortunately. But it would have been really cute for that. But I didn't get to put it in just because of space constraints. And I did end up putting lights in that's the giant basket, and that's not nearly as large as the actual basket. I would just like to throw that out there. But I did end up putting in lights in the wedding reception area, just because if you have a wedding here with your Sims, then you'll probably want some lighting. But we actually didn't have any overhead light. It was a huge thing. We were going to. It was so late the night before. I could have cried over like how stressed out everyone was about getting these lights hung. And then we all were like, actually, you know what? Pretty unnecessary. So it worked out in the end, but it was very touch and go for a minute. But I'm just making up the inside of this building. We were really confined to this room kind of on the right if you're looking at it from the front, but the rest of the house has like a kitchen and a little living area, and probably it was bigger than this house, but I knew that we were not going to be able to fit half of the actual wedding venue stuff on here if I made the house a whole big house as big as it was. So yeah, but this is where we got ready. There was a big table right in the middle of the room, and I did my makeup and my girlfriends did their makeup, and then there were a couple of chairs kind of in the corners of the room, and this is where I sat and read a little letter from my husband. We thought about doing custom vows and reading our own vows, but I don't know, we're both kind of anxious, so we didn't do that. But we wrote each other a little letter beforehand and then read it before our first look. And there was a really ridiculous picture of, I think it was supposed to be kind of a parody of the farmers picture. I don't actually know what that's called. I should, but I don't off the top of my head. But yeah, so there was some silly artwork in there kind of, but whatever. Just doing the back patio now. There were lots of plants back here. I actually dipped the train of my dress into like a pan under a plant, to catch the water. But it came right out. It honestly dried and it was totally fine, but it looked really bad at first. But that's where I took some getting ready photos. But like I said, we kind of jumped all over this build. Really, it was a lot to handle. So I just kind of, as I saw things, put them where they belonged. So I made this little sign-in table, had lots of plants and photos and, little candle votives and things. So this is kind of our sign-in table. I think it looks really good, actually. But I think this is about the time that I realized there's not a buffet table unless you have that pack with a buffet table. Yeah, I'm feeling a little gypped about it, but that's fine. We'll keep the mood light. Actually, this is really fun. So my whole wedding had succulents. I love plants. My sister and my mom also love plants. So we grew and cultivated and propagated lots of little succulents to have all over all of the guest tables. And then my husband and his dad made these beautiful planter boxes that we had on the main table, the head table, I guess is what it's called. And they were across the whole table, full of succulents, super beautiful. I really love the way they turned out. I feel like a lot of times in life you have a vision of what things will be and then they aren't that way, but these were that way. But here are the screenshots. I'm talking a little too long. Thank you all so much for watching. Please leave a like, a comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I upload new videos every Monday and Thursday at 4 p.m. So I will see you all in the next one. Bye! Seriously, buy a lot of glow sticks.